Thank you. I've been suffering from a cold, so hopefully if you don't understand something I say, feel free to ask me to repeat. I'm going to read a statement to you, and then I'll take some questions. This morning, the Oklahoma Department of Corrections carried out the court-ordered sentence of Richard Fairchild, who was convicted of murder in the first degree. Inmate Fairchild was served his ceremonial last meal at 4:47 p.m. on Wednesday, November 16th, and elected to have a spiritual advisor present with him in the chamber. The execution process began at 10:10 a.m. Fairchild was declared unconscious at 10:16 a.m. and was pronounced deceased at 10:24 a.m. Though the magnitude of today's events impacts many people on many different levels, we also understand this process will never be over for those who mourn the death of 3-year-old Adam Broomhall. My thoughts today were with him and his family. It is the responsibility of the Oklahoma Department of Corrections to carry out the orders of the court in accordance with the state statute. The agency has done so today. As the director, participating in this process, for the first time I've seen how the agency's professionalism throughout this process ensures the dignity of all involved. With that, I'll take questions. It went exactly as expected. There weren't any complications with the procedure. Obviously, we had some timing with the courts this morning that delayed us out of the gate. I think pretty much we've been able to perform this at 10 a.m. on the dot, so we're a little bit late today, but that was all that was involved.
So the court decision is what pushed it back?
That's right. Just waiting to make sure that we were good to go.
Can you give us your name and your affiliation to?
Sorry, that's Reagan Ledbetter, Channel 6 in Tulsa.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
For this being your first, I guess, one as director, what was your reaction to the process?
You know, honestly, this is a more than 79 steps manual process that corrections performs with a lot of people. It was very impressive how professionally it was carried out. It was even mentioned this morning by Richard Fairchild of how he's been treated and how well he's been treated by the staff. So to be honest, I mean, it was impressive. I mean, it's a horrible day, and I don't want to take anything away from the families, but I'm very impressed with how corrections operated today.
Did you meet with the inmate before he was executed?
I didn't get to talk to him. I got to see him briefly. Our COO got to meet with him, as did Warden Jim Ferris has been with him the whole through the 35-day step-down process. So we did have an interaction, but he was at peace and he was very remorseful, as some of the witnesses saw in his last words.
Any other questions for the director?
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, sir. Thanks, sir.
What are the names of the family members again?
Don't say her.
The uncle is Michael Hurst. Michael, normal spelling, H-U-R-S-T. And then Brandy, B-R-A-N-D-I. Anthony, common spelling, is the victim's aunt. And they'll be joining us here shortly.
Hurst is the uncle.
Aunt. Yes. Michael Hurst is the uncle. Brandy, Anthony is the aunt.
What was Brandy spelling? I'm sorry.
B-R-A-N-D-I.
Good morning. The last words Adam said to my mother was, "Mimi, I love you this much." This morning, she's in heaven holding him in her arms, smiling down on us, because our long journey for justice has finally arrived. I would like to thank the State Attorney General's office, the victims' advocates. Without them, we couldn't have made it through this process. Very tough process, as you can imagine. Adam would have been 34 today, so this is his day. From here on out, the narrative is going to be about him and not Mr. Fairchild. Any questions?
You spoke to the senior and you said that since his death, your family has been torn apart.
Yeah, we've been estranged a little bit. There's members of my family that has not spoken to each other in years. As you can imagine, it's painful to be around each other at times because of what's happened. In particular, like Adam's sisters, their trust was broken. They felt like we were there to protect them, and they feel like we failed. And I understand that. And hopefully this will cause some healing and bring us together. That's really what we want.
Did it give you any comfort that Mr. Fairchild expressed some remorse and apologized?
I feel like that remorse was finally sincere.
I feel like he showed compassion.
I think, yeah, I feel the same way. I think, yeah, there was some compassion there. I was surprised by it, to be honest, because in 30 years he's never done that. And the statement at the clemency hearing, we couldn't tell whether it was sincere or not, because he was still pulling the same things that he had been pulling for 30 years. So, not taking responsibility. And our main thing is, my mother taught us, there's consequences for your actions, good or bad. And we wanted him to face the consequences of what he committed for his actions. We wanted him to take responsibility. I feel like he's finally did that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to hear from our 5 media witnesses now. We're going to start with Sean Murphy from the Associated Press.
I'm Sean Murphy with the Associated Press. Just going to run through kind of my notes. There were 5 media witnesses, 3 witnesses on behalf of the inmate, and then there were 4, I guess, other state officials that were there. The only 2 that I recognized were Tricia Everest, the Governor's Secretary of Public Safety, and Dr. Irvin Yen, who at least for a while was attending on behalf of the Attorney General's office. The death warrant was read at 10:08. That's right after the curtains were raised to the death chamber. As you heard from the victim's family, he did express some remorse. The notes that I have, he said, "Today's a day for Adam, justice for Adam. I want to apologize to his family." He specifically mentioned the victim's mother and grandmother. Then he thanked his lawyers and the investigators, the prison staff, everyone who runs the prison. And then at one point he said he was grateful. He said, "I got to live 29 years extra." He mentioned that his victim would have been 34 today. And he said he was thankful that he found faith in God. Quote, "I'm at peace with God. Don't grieve for me because I'm going to meet my Heavenly Father." And with that, the execution began at 10:10, as the director said. He looked over at a couple of his people that were there on his behalf. There was a minister in the chamber with him that was like rubbing his foot and talking to him. At about a minute after the execution began, I could tell he was talking, appeared to be talking to the Ferris, the operations guy. I think they may have even shared a chuckle. He began to exhale heavily around 10:12. You could see his lips fluttering. The doctor entered to do a consciousness check at 10:15, shook him, appeared to speak to him, and maybe pinch his arm. And he was declared unconscious at 10:16. They turned the mic back on. We could hear him appear to be snoring at that point. 10:16 to 17, some heavy exhaling. His breathing appeared to stop at about 10:18. Color kind of started to drain from his face a little bit. Doctor entered at 10:24, checked for a heartbeat, shined light in his eyes, and declared him dead at that point. And then the director came in, and Director Harp announced that the execution was complete and that declared the time of death at 10:24. So, and they lowered the curtains and escorted us out. So, any questions? All right, thank you.
We'll hear now from Reagan Ledbetter from KOTV 6 in Tulsa.
He covered most of it. A couple things that I would add. As he said, curtain came up at about 10:08. There was a delay because of the court's decision. Immediately when the curtain went up, it was like he knew where the three people that came for him were sitting, because it was like locked eyes. He smiled, and it was like immediately like brought him joy. And then they connected with him. They were waving back and forth immediately, and it seemed like it kind of calmed him down a little bit. And he started his words were with "Today is the day for Adam, justice for Adam." Thanked Mother Stacy, or apologized to Adam's mother Stacy. Thanked his lawyers and investigators, and said he helped him with groceries while he was in prison. Again, like thanked the staff of the prison. Got to live 29 extra years. Thankful for fellowship he found on death row was a comment that he made as well. He said, thanks to everyone for everything. I heard him say, no hard feelings to anyone. And then he ended his about a minute and a half, 2 minutes of final words with, thank you and God bless all y'all. And then it appeared right after that, he looked back to those three people that were in front of us and was smiling again, and smiled for a while, and then looked straight at the ceiling, eyes open, and as he said, appeared to be talking. I thought he was maybe saying a prayer out loud with his eyes open, but then I saw the warden and him kind of share a chuckle, as he said, maybe made some kind of comment, but kind of kept smiling the whole time. But about 10-12 shorter breaths, the eyes started to flutter, more slow breaths, and that continued for several minutes until the doctor came back in. And I noticed he kept his fist tight pretty much the whole time after waving to who we think was probably his lawyers. And then his spiritual advisor was in the room with him the whole time, rubbing his foot. He was with him pretty much the whole time. That's about all I have. Went smooth.